Hello Johannesburg and hello South Africa. My name is Ismail Joosub and I serve as the Manager of Constitutional Advancement at the the Klerk Foundation. I'm thrilled today to bring our podcast, The Constitution in Action, to life here in our studio. Now I have a very special guest today. We're taking this from a virtual space to a real studio because of the preeminence of our guest. We have with us Advice Chuma. Now Advice Chuma, you know him from moving between the pavement and the streets to bringing policy to effect in real life. Councillor Advice Chuma is a person who has worked in grassroots in Alexandra. He's co-founded the Swakoteka Foundation. He's been a digital skills trainer at the Tusong Youth Center, and now he is a PR councillor in the city of Johannesburg. All of that for somebody so young. Now, he's also been very vocal about student access, down to the practicalities of all students having Wi-Fi at student residences, because these are the small barriers that destroy big dreams. I also have with me Amirah Hassim, and I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Hi guys, so my name is Amirah Hassim and I'm currently an intern in the Constitutional Advancement Program at the the Klerk Foundation, and I'm really glad to be here as part of this first in-studio series podcast that we're hosting, and happy to have you here, Advice. Thank you.
So Advice, thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to kick off by asking you a little bit more about yourself. I've mentioned your incredible, impressive CV. What got you into student activism? But most importantly, what do you do now as a PR counselor? A lot of listeners listening to this might not know what a PR counselor is. Tell us your story.
All right. No, thank you so much. I just want to thank this opportunity. I don't take it for granted. I think it's exciting time for me to be seated here representing fellow young South Africans. But yeah, it's always a pleasure. I think interest have been always there. Particularly when you look at the student issues, while I was still in varsity, I think at one point, I've saw that at that moment there were no vehicle for me, maybe where I can participate politically for SRC. Then at that point and moment, I took a conscious decision to say, I'm going to be an independent candidate. And I think back then, for the lack of better word, it was not fashionable to do so. But I think that shows in terms of how one is passionate about issues of students. That propelled me to be where I am because, back then at the higher learning institutions, I was saving and then moving back to the community as well. That's where, like what you read in terms of, Swakoteka Foundation, working at Tusong, doing what we can for the community. But currently to where I am as a PR councillor, it's a more of a constituency-based work, where you are deployed by the party, but obviously enough, in mind to serve the community, to serve the constituency of the party, because ourselves as PR councillors, it's unlike a ward councillor whom we can say that, what councillor control, for the lack of better word, it's directly elected, to say, from point A to point B, this particular ward, Ward 75, this councillor, it's elected there as their face. But when it's come to the PR councillor, proportional representative, that's where now someone chooses the party to say, this particular party, I'm voting for this particular party. And through that proportionality, and then the party will allocate the number of seats that they have in council, so that those numbers, which is ourselves as the activist of the party, and then they will say, you look after this particular wards, Ward 75, Ward 112, Ward 119, which at many times you find that they are far. So what we will do as PR councillors, obviously enough, issues of service delivery, where there's blockage, where things are not going well, bringing the motion into council, participating in council business, obviously enough, do we agree with this particular decision that maybe the executive they want to take, we voice ourselves, we sit in different committees, the section 79, holding the executive to account, but obviously enough at the core of our work, because we look after our constituency, making sure that service deliver, reporting service deliver, same line of service delivery that the ward councillors does, for instance, maybe to practically say it, as a PR councillor, you can't pass a sewer, just spilling on the road, and then you move as if nothing it's wrong. So you need to report that. We know the channels. There's channels available to us. So yeah, we also participate in what they call councillors forum, where both the ward councillor and the PR councillors and the executive of the entities, since you know that the metros are the ones that have entities, and then we'll sit there with them and then hold them accountable street by street to ask questions to say, but in 12 Roosevelt, the road is bad there. When are we resurfacing it? And then JRA, in this case, in the context of Johannesburg, they will say, in fact, that one, it's earmarked, it's on priority list, and then we're going to fix it. If not, and then we can have the discussions with them to say, no, but you can't say, no, you want to resurface that particular road while the one that is bad is this one. So you see, so then that particular road can be prioritized. But at the core of it, cancel business and then service delivery, and then we take care of that particular constituents, regardless of race, color, or anything. Yes.
So advice, that's very interesting. But there are many questions that come up from everything that you just said. When are we resurfacing the roads? The president came to the city of Johannesburg not too long ago and told citizens, your city is filthy. Who do we blame? The electorate look up to people sitting in those councils and are starting to blame them now. I imagine in your life, through your journey, it must have been very difficult. Not only are you in opposition politics, but you're very young. So I just want you to quickly tell us, what has it been like being such a young person in council? Do you have your voice heard? And I ask specifically because we're all young people, and the FW de Klerk Foundation's Constitutional Advancement Program speaks to uplift young people. But young people must also uplift themselves. So we're very thrilled at your story. But once young people get into the positions of power that you find yourself in, are you taken seriously? Are results emerging from your voice in council?
Yeah, I think I need to agree that it's a very difficult one and a complex one. But yeah, I think politics in its own, it's a very rough territory, where the contestation of power, not only does it take place in the ballot, but it takes place individually in the spaces where power resides. I'm not sure if I make sense, but the contestation is always there. So to some extent, a situation where it's like us against them, like us young people against the older generation. And I think what has been lacking, it's the integration and the blending, so because those who are in power, it takes time to trust young people in our capabilities to say, yes, they can do it, irrespective of the political parties. But when even you look in terms of the council, in terms of the balance of the executive, in terms of who is the MMC, who is the chairpersons of the committee, you rarely see a pure young person, in their, not in their early 40s, late 30s, in their real 30s, or below that, so there hasn't been a smooth integration of young people in politics. And as such, if we don't have young people participating politically, like what you said, at the grassroots level, it means that very few as well move to where power resides. And when they are there, their chances of being given huge responsibilities despite their capabilities are very low.
Right.
You see, so...
Right. And I think you start seeing that in national now as well, in the National Assembly. I mean, you've got Ashley Salt from Patriotic Alliance.
Yeah.
And I mean, you had Liam Jacobs for the DA, right? You've got Karabo Kakao for the DA as well.
Yes.
And these are firebrands of young people. And I think they are role models regardless of party, because they show how powerful young people can be when given those positions of responsibility. But Advice, the city of Johannesburg, I mean, come on. What's going on here? What are the main problems in the city of Johannesburg? You look at the city of Cape Town, the city of Tshwane under Nasipi Moya, and they seem to be thriving. What's going on in Joburg? Why has it been so long that this rot has been festering? Is it the revolving door of mayors? Is there cancer at the executive level? And what have you then been trying to do, and your party, to solve this problem?
Yeah, I think first thing first, in anything that any individual wish to do collectively also, there must be a will, So, but what we are seeing in the city of Johannesburg, there's no will, both at the individual level, those that hold these executive positions, like the executive mayor, and collectively, there's no political will, in terms of wanting to make real change, because you can see, like, it's out there in the public, even when the president, like in your reference, he was here, he saw it for himself, and it was very clear that, to him, it necessitated a committee to say, no, we can't continue like this, you see. And what made the president intervention, it's the G20, so which will be hosted here.
Yeah.
And then he realized that, this city is in trouble, and through that acknowledgement, the executive, they also acknowledge that, what, things are not good, they are bad. And then the mayor, again, in his own admission, on top of the executive that they have in the MMC, he also introduced in his State of the City, address, he also introduced something called Bomb Squad, where also the president, there's a team from the president, now there's also team from the mayor, Bomb Squad, and there's also executive. So you can see that, there's no clear direction, there's no will, so hence the city continue deteriorating the way it is,
Bloated democracy, bureaucracy is what it is.
Exactly, and that's why when you check in terms of city of Tshwane, you could understand that, because the complexities of the budget, it's very huge to the normal residents, for the lack of better words. People are interested in seeing drain being blocked, and then it's unblocked. The storm, now it's rain. The roads are flooding. Why? Because the storm drains are not working. You see, and then that also erodes what when the storm drains are not working. It erodes the roads, because the road can hold so much water. At the end of the day, you see now it cracks everything, and then there's that thing where now the roads end up being the way they are. Then it's filth all over.
But what I think the bigger problem is, right? Because local government is the coal face of democracy between citizens. When citizens look at democracy and look at the rewards that were supposed to have been reaped from our nascent democracy, the first thing that comes to their mind is, are our lights on? Is the water running?
Yes.
Can we drive on our roads with no potholes?
Yes.
Crime, education, our kids going to schools in safe areas. And when that doesn't happen, when they don't receive those services, as they don't in the city of Johannesburg, then people tap out, and young people tap out. So I asked you about the state of the city of Johannesburg. You've given me an answer. And really, we know what the answer is. What's going to fix the city of Johannesburg? You need less bureaucracy and more actioning. But for that to happen, you need better leadership.
Yes,
now, you
definitely.
stand out as one of the firebrand young leaders who are in council, making your voice heard, making a difference. But how do we get more Advice Chumas in council? How do we get young people not to tap out of the system, and with the local government elections coming up now in 2026, to actually participate? How do we mobilize them? How do we tell them that all hope is not lost, and that, in fact, LGE, the local government elections, are perhaps even more important than your national elections in 29?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I like how you have phrased it in terms of the importance of the local government, because that's where things, that's where, service are taking place. But coming back to issues of how do we get young people, I think civic organizations have a huge role in NPO and NGOs, like the work that you are doing at the Klerk Foundation, in terms of educating the young people. Because for me, in my own personal observation and how I see it on the ground, is that, young people have so demoralized to the extent that, they've lost hope, They think to them to participate in politics, it's just to participate in the rot, and they don't want to associate themselves with the rot, because either way, you are voting for them to keep, the status quo, and then they continue oppressing us. But when civic organizations, non-partisan, for that matter, step into the ground, through various communities channels that are there, because I can tell you that structures and the people who can mobilize other fellow young people are there on the ground, but those programs that seek to conscientize young people and speak of these issues that we are speaking about, to say, local government, that's where things are happening. When you see that they don't have water in Coronaville, there's no water in LX, there's no electricity, you see the roads, that is this, you are sitting at home unemployed, the face that's close at you in terms of the spheres of government, it's local government elections. So that conscientization and to push the democracy that we are having, to say, you know what, in order for you to voice your frustration and all those kind of things, and to change the leadership, and to move as many of us as young people into these councils, which will lead into the better transitions, even at legislature, provincially, and parliament. It must come like this, as a phase of integration. So that communication at the at the ground level, where the civic organizations go and educate. For instance, a 16 or those that are in high schools, different age level, but some of them in 2026, they will be voting for the first time. So you see, even there, not go to schools and speak politics maybe sometimes, but the importance of voting and the importance of participating in our democracy. And then someone, him or herself, will make a decision to say, no, maybe, in order for me to participate democratically, and I don't want to be an independent candidate, I think this particular party, align with my values ideologically, and then they will make that decision and they will participate. You see.
And I love what you're saying about civic education, because it's really what we do at the FW, the Klerk Foundation, particularly with our constitutional advancement program. We try to monitor the Constitution's application in real life in places like the city of Johannesburg, to see whether or not we're moving the needle on unemployment, to see whether or not services are actually being delivered. Because Advice, as a PR counselor, you would know, when people don't receive services at a local government level, it's a human rights violation. Look at Hammanskraal, for instance, and the cholera outbreak that happened there. Complete violation of the Bill of Rights. When you look at what happens with unemployment, or when you look at young people going to schools in the inner city of Johannesburg in unsafe environments. And we're going to touch just now, Amirah is going to touch on spatial apartheid and how young people are still divided 31 years into democracy between geographics. I mean, you mentioned Alexandra. There's a huge difference between Alexandra and Sandton. But I want to ask you a very tough question, not to put you on the spot. Yes, young people must be integrated into not just the political system, but a political awakening. So that if they don't actually participate in councils and council meetings and trying to fix the city as you are, then at least they participate at the ballot box.
Yes.
But we don't see that. We see from the last election in 2024, the national election, that voter turnout is probably at its lowest that it's ever been.
Yeah.
Shocking, when the largest portion of the population are young people. So the transition and the integration of young people into the political system is going to take a few years. I've got two questions for you, and not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
How long do you predict it will take to fix the city of Johannesburg, is the first question. The second question is, who can fix the city of Johannesburg? We know that LGE, local government elections, have now showed us that local government has become the battleground for politicians across the country. Helen Zille wants to come into the fray here in Joburg. Herman Mashaba probably wants to contest for mayor of Joburg. A week ago, we saw a fight that the Patriotic Alliance had with the ANC over Kenny Kuneni not being MEC any longer.
Yeah.
So there is a renewed and a re-energized view on local government. Local government is under the spotlight, the G20, but that's just window dressing if you ask me.
Yeah.
Who can really fix Joburg? How long will it take, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I, I think starting with the issues of young people not participating in this democracy through showing themselves in the ballot. Yeah, I think now it's encouraging to see IEC starting to take these things of digital voting,
Into consideration.
yes, into
Yeah.
consideration. Yeah,
I think a lot of what you said like really resonates with me. Obviously, I just came recently into the age of voting. I mean, I say recent, but it's been like 5 years.
yeah,
And I think one of the things that you really spoke to is the youth are so not blinded, but they only see the rot that government kind of represents. And I think education is so important because we need to now reinstill hope into the young people. If you think about what's happened over the generations, people have lost their hope. They regained hope when apartheid ended and lost hope when they saw what the government has done with South Africa. And so now a lot of the youth, if you ask them, what is your goal? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? So many of them say, my end goal is to not be in South Africa. And I mean, I think that's where one of the problems start, because they feel they can't get jobs here, they can't have a life of comfort here, they can't raise kids here. And I think it speaks to say of how we really need to reinstill that hope through education into our youth. And I think it does start by having podcasts like these, because in order to get to the youth in the way they understand, you need to speak to them on the platforms that they watch daily. So in the same platforms that they watch, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it be, you need to be speaking to them where they're at, basically, is what I'm saying. Sorry, I kind of interrupted, but I needed to add that in.
It's really great, because I also want to add something. I have a theory, and you can prove me right or wrong, that today young people in South Africa have adopted this dependency mindset or an entitlement mindset that government must give us jobs, government must give us education, and yes, government must provide for its part that which it must provide. But government has failed in giving young people the tools that they need to build a future for themselves. Where I'm going with this question is that we're so terribly lagging behind some of the more developed countries in the world. When will we get to the stage when our grade 4 learners, who, by the way, 81% of whom can't read for meaning, learn coding in schools, AI, digital technology, when they don't even have basic internet access? That's the type of service delivery we're talking about. You did a lot of work on that, trying to get Wi-Fi connectivity for young people. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about how young people just need those building blocks. What have you guys been doing there in council to try and give young people those building blocks so that they can build for themselves? Or am I wrong? Should government then, give young people everything that they need? If so, why haven't we seen that?
All right. No, thank you so much. I will just circle back. I think, circling back to what she was communicating about. I think it's very inspiring. Ourselves seated here, being young people. We might not realize the impact that we are making, but I think. When other fellow young people seeing us, being seated and having this kind of communication, they get inspired, because the voices of their peers are being out there, which will also inspire them, to do the same in their communities. They might not have this particular platform, but as they grow and then be where we are ourselves now, and then this platform will be also provided to them to share their opinion. But when it comes to issues of the mayor and the city of Johannesburg being at the peak of its contestation, and how long will it take, and who can properly or maybe fix Johannesburg, I think numbers are there, that speaks of Action SA, the president of Action SA, Mr. Herman Mashaba, while he was the mayor. I think Action SA was the culmination of the disappointment of the people and the residents of Johannesburg when Action SA was formed, who said, you can't leave us alone. In order for us to continue with you and you continue with the work that you were doing in terms of making sure that the students, we have lots of buildings that who were hijacked, while the students are suffering, they don't have accommodation, that partnership with private sector and many other things, are servicing some of the projects, in terms of cleaning the city, and making sure that, the residents of the city abide by the bylaws and the laws of South Africa, it's clearly there. And I think through at the ballot paper, that was the demonstration to say, indeed, the people of Johannesburg were ready and wanted President Herman Mashaba to be the mayor. You'll understand that, during that election in 2021, there was a complication where, IEC decided not to write Action SA in full, and then they only put the logo, so meaning that Action SA contested the election without the name. And despite that, Action SA managed to get 44 seats, became the third largest party, so you can imagine if the name was there. So meaning that if that continuation and the people on the ground are saying, no, Mr. Herman Mashaba, we want you to be a mayor, and what we saw in 2021 and then continue with that trajectory, I think in the next 5 years, and then we can say we might not be fully saying Johannesburg is full, but the progress can show itself.
I want to make it clear, the FW de Klerk Foundation is non-partisan. Our guest is from the political party Action SA, and therefore he's going to advocate on behalf of that party. So, Advice,
yes,
thank you for that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this question, though. Coalitions. We've entered the era of coalitions at a national level, provincial level. I mean, we see it in KZN, it's holding by a thread there. And at a local government level, we see coalitions, which seem to be on today and off tomorrow, right? And so have we, yes, entered into an era of coalitions, but is this going to make the revolving door spin even faster? In Joburg, we see that there's WhatsApp groups where people pull out of WhatsApp groups, coalitions collapse. What kind of government is this, right? It's a year since Celia Brink was removed as mayor of Pretoria, of Tshwane, because Action SA obviously then played a move to, let's be frank, to collapse that coalition. And so I don't want you to get into party politics, but I want you to speak broadly about how have we, and we see so many laws, legislation at a local level regarding coalitions, right? Have we really gotten the gist of coalitions at a local government level? If not, what's lacking there? What's on your wish list? What will make coalitions more stable in cities so that when 13, 14, 15 parties come together in a coalition in the city of Johannesburg, you don't have a mayor who received 1 or 2 seats in council like Kwamanda.
Yes, yeah.
How do we fix that?
Yeah, you are correct, in saying that coalition seems to, moving at a fast pace. They might communicate it differently at a national level, the way they want to phrase it, but the fact of the matter, that's a coalition. That can't change. When parties come together to govern, in political terms and the structures in terms of where they are, that's a coalition. And then you look in, like you rightfully said, in terms of what happened in Tshwane, and rightfully said what's happening in Johannesburg. But to fix that, coalition, we must accept, as South Africans, to say, coalition, it's how we are going to govern in future for the longest time before a ruling party, one party can come back to power or another party emerge to be alone as the sole leader of any municipality in our country. But that needs to be legislated so that at least it will change the direction in terms of how now coalition are being perceived. Because my pure opinion as an individual and someone, how I see it, if I step outside of where I am and then look it from distance, I would say currently what influence coalition, it's what do you get, as certain political parties. That's what necessitated one of the fights even here in Johannesburg to say, you either put us back, in this particular portfolio, or else we are detaching ourselves everywhere. We are unplugging ourselves. Yeah. So that tells you, and even to all other parties, even those that are at the national coalition, that coalition, its influence in terms of, what do you get? Where do you sit? And that's why even on the negotiation, it's not then negotiated based on merit in terms of, this particular leader hold these particular skills. So on a merit scales, this one is more qualified to hold this particular position. But it's on the basis of, ourselves, which strategic position can we have? Hence here in Johannesburg, you saw PA say, no, us, it's transport or nothing. Why?
We pull out of the national coalition that we're in.
You see,
and Gaten steps down as minister.
you see,
I don't understand the correlation between
you
the
see,
two.
you
But
see.
I really do feel like there's so much bureaucracy when you get to the coalition side of things. And it's like there really is a disconnect. I mean, you're saying, and I agree with you, we're going to have coalitions governing us for the next few years until we have one party that can be ruling again. We don't even know if that's going to happen. I mean, with upcoming elections, it's, in my opinion, I think it's definitely looking at a coalition. But the thing is, how do you have people work together who have so far been completely opposing one another, right? They've been competitors in every other aspect. And I think it comes down to having an agreement that why are we here? Like realigning yourself with, we're not here because we want to fight each other or because I want this and you want that. And I really don't know how we'll get to this point, but our politicians really need to recenter themselves and say, we are here for the point of making South Africa better. And one step by one step, we are going to get to that point. But if they just continue to fight in terms of coalition and in terms of we want to use this strategy because we want this sector and that sector, or what PA is saying, they only transport. I mean, everyone has a different skill set. And I think that we need them to realign themselves and say, we're here for one reason. So let's combine our skill set and let's make it work together. And I think they are completely so far away from that. They're stuck in a bureaucratic kind of fight that's happening, and it's completely disconnected from the people of Alex, the people of Soweto, the people of other townships. I mean, it's completely disconnected. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And what I like in terms of what you are saying, to me, you are saying that, let's move from politics of ideologies and this is our policy, but look into politics of providing service to the people, where we say service deliveryism. Service delivery comes first beside our political ideologies and our political slogan. And to me, again, that's communicate to say, despite these bureaucratic tendencies and behavior that we are seeing in government, but from the young people point of view, it matters less in terms of sometimes, in terms of, we can't move from this position because of on the ideological basis, instead of we are moving into this direction because this is the direction where we'll get service delivery.
Exactly.
No, you're right. You're right. I agree with that. That there's no ideology when it comes to service delivery. You either deliver the services or you don't. But I want to challenge you on that. And I want to make an example. And this is an objective example, not subjective. I mentioned again that as the foundation, we are non-partisan. But there was quite an outcry when Helen Zille went on national media and expressed her views about Israel. Or refused to call it a genocide and so forth. And so people then extrapolated an ideology to her now running for mayor of Johannesburg. Should that matter? Should things like that matter? So if the president of any party, Herman Mashaba, Gaten McKenzie, right, align themselves ideologically with some national objective that they want for their party, so the PA or Action SA or the DA are ideologically aligned to the West, to the East, socialism, capitalism, whatever it may be, should that then have some bearing on their standing for mayor of local government? Or is it not? Is it just, can they on the lights, the water?
Yeah. So I think for any particular leader to express themselves in a direction of how, as collective political party, they centered in the West, or they support what's happening in Israel, or they don't support. Since that message is communicated in the platform like this, it means that, those that have opinions on the ground, and for that matter, who are voters, they will decide for themselves. And then they don't align with certain views of certain political party, and to them it's an offense, then they will make that particular decisions on the ballot, if that's how they are voting. But if, and then a president, like for instance, of I will just use Action SA as an example, and then make a statement that might offend, someone, and then for that particular reason, and then you are not going to vote for Action SA. And then I think those things, it's on an individual basis. But if, and then someone said something, and then we have an understanding that, even though we are leaders, we are human beings, we have opinions. For the fact that you are offended because Action SA leader publicly pronounced to say, no, he aligned with certain, geographical, side of the world, and then that don't sit well with you, and as such, you won't be voting for Action SA, even though you know that, Action SA leader is a competent one to lead. That's also your decision. But there will be those that will say, I don't agree with that particular view on a personal and basis and how I see things, but this man is the right person to lead. And for that reason, it's not going to change their vote, because they know that it's not ideology that will deliver, or it's not the statement that's going to deliver the service, but it's the capabilities of human being to give the service to the residents, you see.
So you're saying voters, and especially young people, because young people, and as Amirah said, we're just entering our political consciousness. We're becoming conscientized by the work that you guys in public office are doing, and we're starting to question who must we vote for, who can deliver. But what you're saying is that we must then balance morals with merit. Do we morally agree with certain political parties, even though they have the merit to carry out the duty? Or do we say morally they might be a bit shady, but they do have the merit, and I like my water being turned on every morning? So that's what... But I get what you're saying, and I want to move to this thing of service deliverism, because I like the term that you coined, and I think it's very apt, because Johannesburg is a city where we see perhaps a lack of service delivery on a scale that we've never seen before. Johannesburg used to be the golden city of Africa, and now it's turned into a place where dreams are crushed for all of the reasons we've mentioned in this podcast so far. And so when we talk about service delivery, you mentioned earlier in terms of civic education, when I asked you how do we get young people to want to come out to the ballot and vote, you said NPOs and civil society organizations and even podcasts like these must start amping up its involvement in getting civic education and young. But the private sector, can't we bring in the private sector in certain aspects of our city? We've got Operation Vulindlela at a national scale, but I mean, why? Look at the roads, look at the railways. Amirah was telling me, she came here, we pass trains that are defunct, robots that are not fixed. When are we going to become a smart city? I asked you about Wi-Fi earlier. The government is not going to provide that. Can't we bring in more private partnerships?
Definitely, without a doubt, it's clear in terms of the direction where we are moving that, if there were ever a time where government thought that, they are the only sole custodian in terms of fixing the residents and the community's problems, if there were that particular thinking, and that thinking, it's no longer applicable in the situations where we find ourselves in, because private sector, not only will it uplift in terms of creating much more employment that young people are needed, but it will also help and assisting in terms of some, their philanthropic work that they are doing in these communities to uplift the community. Either it be imparting the skills that are needed for young people to make sure that, they increase their chances of the prospect of getting employment, the partnership that makes sure that, government alone, can't do it. And I think that will also improve in terms of the balancing and the balance and checks, because I don't think private sector in its entirety will want to inject capital and then they don't see the benefit of that capital that they are injecting, where it will end up being looted. It means that it will also increase the level of accountability while making sure that things work. Check in terms of the roads, the things that needs to be done. If maybe certain agencies, they don't have capacity to have and expand their storage, or to expand their operation where they are making the flat to, tie the roads or whatever that might be the reason. If, there's a collaboration in terms of the private and the government and those entities that are struggling to make sure that, they increase the capacity of those facilities, it means that that's good for the residents. Residents will start to see a quicker turnaround in terms of how things move. If there's no capacity in terms of the jet vac that needs to go and unlock some of these things, and private sector are in a better position to assist, why not? Because at the end of the day, it's communities and residents who benefit.
Exactly. Yeah. And like we said, when these services are not being provided, you are bordering on human rights violations. You're saying whoever can come in and provide clean drinking water, let's do that. Let's bring them in. Let's bring the businesses in.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The problem is that this also then depends on the budgets of the city, because I don't know how the budget of Johannesburg is appropriated currently, but if government thinks that it can do it all, it's going to appropriate massive amounts of the budget to portfolios where it can't do it all.
Can I just say, I really do think that, okay, budget is a second thing, but I really do think for our first problem that we spoke about, how are we going to get the youth to be part of the voters, one to be part of, the politics, and want to be part of the community that South Africa wants to create. I do think that service delivery is the most important thing, because as a young person, and I'm going to speak very frankly, if I go drive down the road with my friends, we'll see water flooding out because something was broken or I didn't fix. We literally just say oh yeah, this is South Africa, this is how things are, we just accept it, nothing's going to get fixed because the money's probably stolen, or bribery and corruption is happening. We know this is South Africa, this is our standard, this is how we live. I think the first party or coalition or the first private organization that can go and actually deliver those services and be consistent with it, because I do think we struggle with that in South Africa. One is consistency. The second is to fulfill promises that we make to our people. The first people who go and they do that and win the trust of the people, in the sense of, we promised you that you guys are going to have roads, we promised you guys are going to have housing, we promised you guys are going to have robots that work, and water that when you open the tap you get it, whether or not it's a Sunday or whether or not it's a Monday, the first people who can make that a living reality for people all over South Africa, and I don't just mean in Sandton or in Pretoria where the embassies and the big corporates are headquartered. I mean in the middle of Alex, in the far ends of Limpopo, in KZN, all over the townships. We need to be able, whoever promises and fulfills those promises first is going to be the people who really reignite that passion for South Africa and enables a ripple effect of, okay, we see they are providing a service for us, now we can vote for them again. Or I see it now, I think it's the DA, they went into the townships and they were filling potholes and that kind of thing. Not that I'm associated with them in any way, but I'm saying they've kind of they've caught the eye of the people to say, we are going to solve your problems. And I think that's really what the people of South Africa want to see, and that's what will reinstill hope into them. Then the second thing about budget, I think we really need to re-look at how it works in South Africa, and budget should be allocated according to who can deliver the service the best. And I know that's what the tenders are supposed to be, but it's not what we have currently in South Africa. Obviously, we've seen now with the various commissions going on, the people that are winning the tenders are not providing the service. I think that's another problem to also look at, because a lot of the time, the people in the background will do their job of saying, okay, here is the problem, this is the service we need to provide. And then the people who are then going and allocating out to who provides that service and pays those people, the service is then not actually done. So it either needs to be that government needs to find a way to work with private companies and maybe not tender out as much as they do, or alternatively hire those people themselves and say, obviously what we've been doing hasn't been working. We need to find a way to be self-sufficient and solve these problems ourselves. So I think in terms of that, That's my opinion.
Also, I just have to add to that, right?
Yes.
And I know it almost seems as though we are throwing complaints at you, Advice, but you're a PR counselor.
Yeah.
This is your job.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You speak about return on investment for private companies. It's return on investment for the citizens. For the citizens.
Yeah.
We pay rates and taxes. We expect a transaction that happens between the citizens and the municipality. And municipalities have almost distorted themselves into little mafia organizations where they extort people for money, but then there's no return on that investment. I've been paying my rates and taxes, my water bill, but there isn't any services. So that's what we're saying, right? And when I go back to this thing of budget, what I'm actually referring to is that, so you have a few parties in a coalition at a local government level. Let's assume you have, hypothetically, you have the ANC, you have the EFF, you have the DA. Those are three very different parties. The ANC might say, okay, we support some form of public-private partnership. So the budget appropriated to economic development doesn't need to be that high. It can be a facilitative budget. We'll facilitate a conducive environment for the free market. The DA might be leaning completely to the free market to say, no, well, in fact, the free market should have the majority of that budget to bolster itself. The EFF might have a completely different ideology. They might say, no, not at all. We want the budget for economic development in the city of Johannesburg to be as high as possible because we, the EFF, think that we can provide economic delivery for the citizens of Johannesburg. And when those three parties hypothetically come together and mesh in a coalition, that's when you have one, bloated bureaucracy and young people not being able to get into council because there's power sharing now and, you know, I'm in the coalition, so give me a seat in council. And young people are excluded from that because people are playing politics, number one. But number two is that budgets are just allocated. No one knows how those budgets are being spent. There's no accountability. There's no transparency. It flouts the constitution. And the citizens are asking themselves, as Amirah and I are asking ourselves, what happened to our rates and taxes? That's where we stand.
No, alternatively, okay, maybe I don't know if I should be saying this. Alternatively, we do know where our rates and taxes are going. And they were just raided a couple of days ago from a couple of mansions. So, I mean, you know, it's the truth of it. And I do think that we also need to stop just, you know, keeping things in the background. Whatever needs to be aired out, it needs to be aired out. And people need to know this is what's going on in our country. Because you can't solve a problem if you're not talking about what are the root causes of it, right? We're saying we want young people to come and get involved at the grassroots level and we want to conscientize them. They are conscientized. They know what's going on. But we need to now change that alignment and we need to say, guys, this is what's been going on. We know we have been living in a corrupt South Africa. As the youth of today, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to change it? Are we going to carry on living in this? Is this what we're going to raise our kids and make our families and make our homes in? Or are we going to make a very intentional change to what our country is going to look like? And I think it's the most important thing to say, this is our problem. We all know about it. We've been reading about it. We've been seeing about it in the news. We know what's going on. I mean, we see it in our daily lives. So our next step is let's problem solve. Let's get the solutions in place. Let's get the service delivery. Let's start changing one step by one step. Let's change what we can do. And I think one thing at a time creates a ripple effect. And people, like you're saying, start to become inspired. They start to be wanting to be part of what we are doing because they see that, okay, other people are doing it. Other people are doing what I thought I should do as well, maybe. And it really does, I think, have an effect to say, okay, let's make our country better. So let's not run away from it, essentially. And I can say that with confidence because I left and I came back. So, yeah.
No, definitely, without a doubt, you know, particularly as young people, in my own opinion, I've always said that, you know, if young people, as majority of us, you know, can take it upon ourselves and say, you know what, we're speaking of our future currently, not, you know, something that it's where we are and where we are seated. Those of us who are eligible to participate in and exercise this democratic right of us voting and go out to vote in our numbers. In my own opinion, I have no doubt that in South Africa we'll have a different government completely, So if young people can decide in that particular direction. But I also want to touch in terms of what Ismail said. When it comes to the parties in the examples that he provided, and you find that this one is centered in this. Politics on its own is a very highly contested space, because political parties perceived that, we are in power because of this particular messaging that we have been pushing when we are communicating with the voters. But I think once you are there and then now decisions start to be made, I think the communication of when you are in power and when you were not in power are different. Because it can't be that, a lesser budget, it's not allocated on the basis of, the partnership with private sector. And you see that, this is what's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you decide to allocate this particular fund at the highest, you are also maybe taking away from the social service that were needed to be put somewhere, and you are enforcing that, because yourself, you don't align in terms of working with private sector. So as such, that thing is not going to happen. I don't think that's the best way of seeing things, for the lack of better word, I would say it's selfishness, not for the benefits of the communities, but it's a self-enrichment and a highest exercise of power that's not benefiting the communities. Because if then now, there's this, it's clear, communities are going to benefit, employment are going to. So on the basis of saying, no, us, we don't subscribe to that, even if we see that it's going to make change, and then we are saying, no, that can't happen.
I 100% agree with what you're saying, and I actually want to go back to what we said. When Ismail said that people are now, obviously very concerned with regards to Helen Zille saying she doesn't stand with Palestine and the people, or I don't know if she said she doesn't stand or if she's just neutral on it, but I think what you're saying about like people being selfish in terms of governing, it's the reason why people vote and look at ideology and also service delivery. I think we can categorize them separately, but in essence, communities are looking for leaders. Communities are looking for leaders who they trust. And when they look at the morality of people, for example, saying to your people, I stand with the people of Gaza, I stand with the people of Palestine, I don't agree that they should go through all of these inhumane sufferings that they've been put through. It really goes to show that, like, you know what, I can vote for this person because I know in the future circumstances that might be presented to them, they will choose the right path and they will choose the morally correct path, and they won't be selfish in what they're choosing. They won't choose things that will be for self-preservation or making themselves richer, or what we currently see in our local governments a lot of the time, where instead of money going towards things like what you're saying, service delivery, or people who are in real need of it, communities that are in real need of it, it's getting stolen. And I mean, not to say that this is what's going to happen, but that's also another reason why people choose their leaders, and that's why morality is very important. But we shouldn't get stuck on, the ideologies of it. But it is a very important part.
And maybe to add in terms of what you are saying when it comes to issues of morality, for me, in terms of how I see it, there should be no anyone forcing anyone to take certain stands, and as such, and then it's an issue of saying, no, you do this, if you don't do this, I won't. No. Because we are human beings. But I think what becomes problematic in terms of this, it's when maybe, for instance, leaders pronounce themselves And because you are a leader, once you pronounce yourself, it means that collectively, for that particular party, we see that, okay, this is the direction that you are getting, you are going. But be as it may, it's if you see, you have made allies with these particular ones, and these ones, they saying, no, we are not going with you because you are not allies with these ones. We want you to be allies with these ones, because no one is not having allies. Everyone, they have allies. So, but if, and then this particular one, and then these are my allies, and then if it's, for me, it's on the basis that I won't vote for you because of that, I think we must also respect that constitutional, the freeness that I have to make my own rights and my decision. I must not be, right. So I must not be blasted and say, why can't you vote for me because I've said this and this and this. There will be those that align with you in that particular views, and if for them they are voting on the basis of the views and the ideology, they are not voting on the basis of the capability and the merit. And then those that vote in the merit, for instance, let me give a practical example. If President Emen Mashaba said, as an example, I'm just using this as an example, practical example, say, no, we don't have, we are non-partisan in terms of what's happening there. We are calling for ceasefire. There must be peace in the two states, and then someone said, no, you are wrong. You are morally dead. You should condemn Israel for what they are doing. So as such, I'm not going to vote for you to become a mayor of city of Johannesburg, even though I see that you are capable and in the past you have done right work. For me, it's like, oh, okay, but judge me on my work and in terms of how I can deliver.
So we are almost out of time. Interesting to note some facts. The fact is that New York had a similar problem to Johannesburg in the 70s. Advice, what you said strikes me so much, because you said some leaders are in positions of power simply because they want to have the biggest share of the pie for themselves, the biggest budget appropriated to their portfolio, and become selfish leaders, even though communities might benefit more if they relegated some of their power to, for instance, the private sector. And so tax cuts for businesses that are willing to take over government's load could be a solution in and of itself. Interesting also to note that 60-something% of South Africans trust the private sector, 12 to 20% of South Africans trust the public sector. But I want to enter in the 2 minutes we have left into a rapid fire round with you, just one-word answers. If Advice Chuma were mayor of the city of Johannesburg, what's the first thing he'd fix?
Yes, it's service delivery.
Particularly, specifically? There are a number of issues. We've got water, roads, illegal immigrants, crime, hijacked buildings.
I think in this case, hijacked buildings, hijacked buildings for the reason that, student accommodations, you see in township, it's bad there. People now are starting to illegally build upstairs, in LX, and Soweto, because spaces it's not available. Families, they don't have a place to stay. But here in the city, we're having thousands of buildings that are illegally occupied, some of them by illegal immigrants, which, it's another issue, but some of them by South Africans as well. So,
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the city of Johannesburg's performance since the new mayor, Dada Morero, came into office?
It's 2.
What would make it? What would bring it up to a 10 out of 10? The one thing. Better, more credible leadership, more young people in government.
And the willingness to lead. The guy is nowhere to be seen. You can just see whether it be. It's nowhere. It's out. I'm not sure what's up. I've never seen the mayor who disappear in their residence like the current mayor. This one is completely out of touch with the community. Even myself as a councillor, I wonder to say, but how these men have been chosen to be a mayor? That goes back to the merit.
On the water issues in Johannesburg, in the 30 seconds that we have left, will it ever get fixed? How? One thing that needs to change.
The budget are missing. We have been told 2 weeks that, the money that were budgeted for water, they say they've reallocated it. We don't know. So how do you reallocate? And yesterday, the committee for that deals with it, they were here in the city of Johannesburg. So it's a mess.
It is a mess. Last thing.
Yeah.
One word of advice you'd give to young people who want to become more like Advice.
Never lose hope and faith. Yeah. I think it will be true. Hope is important. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And that's a wonderful podcast that we've had, our first in-person podcast with Advice Chuma, a PR counselor for Action SA for the city of Johannesburg, a city that is reeling from a lack of service delivery. But as Advice tells us, have hope. Go out, young people, educate yourselves in what is going on in the city and then how you can play a part to fix the city. But that's us from the FW de Klerk Foundation's Constitutional Advancement Program. Thank you, Advice. Thank you for the work that you're doing for the city, for being a role model to young people. And we hope that no more streets in Johannesburg blow up.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
All right. No, thank you so much. And thank for the foundation and yourself. You are doing an incredible work. Continue doing what you do. You are an inspiration to the nation. Thank you.